It's the Holy Hour Podcast, the bi-weekly all-cure podcast. How's it going out there, guys? Thanks so much for checking in and checking out this episode. I'm Gavin. Hope everyone's doing well out there and still kicking. And as we like to do in this show, we're putting the crazy outside world off to the side and focusing in on the important shit, like the cure and what's going on. And we have a lot going on. It's just me tonight. I got an empty-ish house. The little kid's asleep, which is good. I'm chipping away at this bottle of wine. The wife's out of town. I figured on the calendar, we have an epic date approaching. So this would be a good time to dive in and pay our respects to none other than Perry Bamonte, beloved former member of The Cure. And yeah, so thanks for joining us. I hope you're doing good and ready for this adventure through the story of Perry. And yeah, we didn't want to mess this up. We miss anniversaries and time things strangely on this show a lot of times, but I saw this approaching and thought this would be great. We'll get this out hopefully on the Sunday before his birthday. Will be this Thursday. So not only will it prep you to celebrate properly on Thursday for Perry's actual 60th birthday, but we can celebrate him all week at this point. So I'll get you pumped up with this episode. And then when Thursday rolls around, you'll be like primed for a pure Perry celebration. So yeah, I mean, he's a personal favorite. He always just seemed like such a cool dude in the band, and I love what he brought to the table as a musician and just as like a guy that I could focus on as a member of The Cure. We'll get into the full stories, and I'm sure I'll say this a billion times throughout the episode, but it is crazy since making this podcast of like, you know, I never had the privilege of meeting Perry or anyone really from The Cure, so it's all like blows my mind. But it's crazy how many of like meeting The Cure stories in any form whatsoever, like about 80% of them stem or start at Perry doing something awesome, or at least just being a cool human and like, you know, making the moment happen somehow, if that makes sense. It seems like, you know, it meant the world to me as a kid. Like when I would approach a band, you know, any band, it could be like the smallest nothing band, but I put them on this huge pedestal because being a young musician and just a nervous dude anyway, like going up and talking to anybody was nerve-wracking, but a musician that I really admire was like, oh my God. So it was easy to get starstruck, but it meant the world to me when they would be super cool. Not even just like over the top cool, like just being like, yeah, you know, because a lot of times they will just shoot you down if you're asking for an autograph or just say great show or something, like, yeah, I know, or something, you know. It's easy to just make you feel horrible, but at the same time, just feeding off of any of that energy and they're just being sweet back to you was like, oh my God, you just made this band so much cooler in my mind. And, you know, and when a band would do something, or a member from the band would do something like, you know, not only be cool, but then like introduce you to somebody else in the band or something, or just slowly let, you know, it not just end with like, here's my fucking name on a piece of paper, good night, you know. And it was like, that meant so much. And I can't imagine like how great that would be. For the most part, the whole band sounds pretty rad that way, but it just seems like statistically from all these stories I hear, so I'm unbiased, these are your stories that I've heard, and like how many of them stem off of Perry being that way and being like super cool to a fan, and then like, you know, something else might happen, or maybe it just ends there, but he was super awesome. And I don't know, I think that is credit that should be given and due, because that's pretty over the top sweet and awesome, and he just seems like that kind of dude. So fuck yeah, it's worth celebrating him. That's a big birthday coming up this week too, 60th birthday. When the hell did 60-year-olds end up being so cool? This whole band, really. Is it like just a weird shift in the way life is now? Are the royalties from these records that good, where they're able to look so good and be healthy and just look awesome still and be like cool ass looking 60-year-olds? Because growing up, 20-year-old, if you ask me what a 60-year-old looked like, it would not be like what the Cure looks like right now. I mean, obviously they defy logic and all kinds of mortal ways or anything, but at the same time, it's crazy. You see Perry in the footage of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame stuff. He looks like the coolest fucking 60-year-old I've ever seen in my life. So I don't know. Maybe it's just a true sign of me finally getting older, where I'm like, 60 doesn't seem that old. They totally look cool. They're ready to rock, Like to a kid, he's probably like, what are all these geezers? But I don't know. I'm convinced they seem cool as hell. So whatever they're doing, I hope they keep doing, because Perry in particular looked amazing at that Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and cool as hell. So if I'm 1/18th that cool looking at 60, I'll be happy. Shit, I'll be happy if I'm alive at 60, but let alone a fraction of their coolness. Okay, I don't want to get over the top, kissing up to these guys and Perry right off the bat here. So let's see why he's so great, right? So pull up yourself, get yourself comfy, get yourself cozy, get yourself an adult beverage, or I don't know, a juice box, or a giant pile of cocaine, whatever you're into. And let's walk through what we do know about Perry Bamonte and in his story of a little bit before and time in the Cure, and what we've got for what he's been up to since not being in the Cure. So we got a little bit of all of it, and calling on you guys too. You might know some stuff that I wasn't able to scrounge up on the research for this. Believe it or not, Perry isn't blowing up the internet with information then or now. And so yeah, I kind of just scrapped together my usual resources, and this is what we got. So will you join me in this celebration of 60 years of Perry and his greatness?
This isn't love. This isn't real. This is
Born on a Saturday in London, England, September 3rd, 1960, Perry grew up on the Essex coast of southeast side of England. We don't know a lot about his childhood, but we do know he's got an older sister named Carla and a younger brother named Daryl. Daryl will come up a lot in Cure history and more later. Longtime tour manager for the Cure from about 95 to 2005. And he got his early start with Depeche Mode and is even featured in a few of their documentaries. But like we said, he'll come up later. Let's focus on Perry. All right, Perry is a wee boy, attended a school called St. Nicholas in Basildon, England, where oddly enough, Andy Fletcher and Martin Gore of Depeche Mode, so already the Depeche Mode connection is strong, also went to school there. And Alison Moyet from Yaz also went to that school. So fucking A, what was in the water there? That's pretty rad. Good school. I had Donald in my class, and we had some good athletes. And only a couple of them ended up in prison, I think. But definitely not Depeche Mode caliber or Yaz quality in anyone in my school. But let's go back to Perry here. He didn't really have any official music training as a youngster, saying that he was often discouraged from picking up a guitar because he was left-handed. However, around the age of 17, he couldn't resist any further. His love for Bowie and T-Rex and Jeff Beck and Clash started to get the better of him. He formed a few early bands that were called, some good names here, Anorexic Dread, The School Bullies, and Film Noir. Perry would call most of those bands rubbish. They were formed just to make noise and had no real direction or spark of potential. So Perry, being the humble man from the start, very modest. However, Anorexic Dread did actually get signed fairly quickly. Of course, like most young bands, it didn't really pan out. And didn't last or amount to much. But come 1984 at this point, his brother, already referring back to his younger brother Daryl, had already landed a roadie gig for Depeche Mode and was working for them, and somehow was able to hook Perry up with a gig being a roadie for The Cure. So I'm not quite sure, maybe just crossovers of playing shows together or what, but from the research I saw, I'm not really sure what kind of poll that would have been. Maybe just put in a good word for him, but somehow it worked. The Cure pulled on Perry to be their roadie around the Top tours, is where it all kicks off. So Perry had a quote in Never Enough, the book by Jeff Apter. He said, "Getting to watch one of my favorite bands for more pay than I was getting by being in a crappy band sounded like a good idea." So Perry gladly signed on to be a roadie for The Cure. Yeah, it was cool this weekend. The weekend of recording this anyway, I watched a Cure watch party that Arusha and Carl and Bear with No Face have been doing a few of these now, and I was finally able to catch a second one. They did the Tokyo 84 live footage, and it was fun to watch that with everybody, and you know, I'd seen that a billion times, but I never noticed that Perry at the end pops in and he's kind of like, "Hey, you know, you're on." He's like Scooter from the Muppets, "On in 5, Mr. Pearl," or something like that. And so yeah, he pops in for a second at the end there, and that was cool to see him. And you know, I've read it a billion times, but I guess I just didn't register. I always think of Perry being the roadie from like Kiss Me era up or something, you know, but it's amazing that it stretched back that far. So pretty cool. During those early years, of course, Perry would say that it never even dawned on him the possibility of joining the band. So it wasn't even like that was like a, you know, like something in the back of his head. He's like, well, if I just hang out being a guitarist, maybe someday I'll be in this band. That seems pretty much not even an issue. Never even came up, you know. I guess knowing the Lowell situation, but I mean, you got to keep in mind he was only strictly a guitarist at this point. So they just brought Porl into the band and Robert. So yeah, there wasn't really much room for growth, job potential wise, but he seemed totally happy with that. Of course, as you would be with The Cure. So it sounds like he gets along great with them, though. He's hanging out with them. It's not just like strictly a touring gig kind of thing, because he's hanging out with them at the Kiss Me sessions already a few years in 87 when they're recording Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me. Robert's sister, Janet, is credited to starting to give Perry some piano lessons and keyboard lessons while the band's recording the album. They're hanging out. So, I mean, he's hanging out with them. I mean, I'm sure he got the gear there and stuff, but as far as, you know, job-wise, he must already be clicking with the members of The Cure very well. He's just hanging out with them while they're recording this album. Yeah, he's learning piano, and over the next month he'll really dig into the keys and get a better grasp of that based off of Robert's sister, Janet. So that's pretty rad that she's teaching him. So then we keep it rolling, go into Disintegration. By this point, Roger's officially in the band from the Kiss Me tour on, and into Disintegration. But as Disintegration, the Prayer tour starts to wind down, and we do see Perry again in the, I believe it was picture show, the little in-between footage. He was the one that's saying, "Cure's playing Dodger Stadium, this must be the end," or something, which never really seemed that weird at the time because I knew he was in the band, but like when you put the thing together, it's like, oh yeah, he's the roadie dude. So that's pretty rad, seeing that as a Cure fan and going back. But by the end of the Prayer tour, Roger is out, and Lowell's long gone, so they have no keyboardist. So Perry is asked to join the band. It would almost seem like he was asked to join mostly because he was like already such an established part of the crew and friend, over the fact that he was like some kind of musical virtuoso or anything. He, definitely seemed like he knew the songs very well, probably. I mean, he's been hanging around since 84. He's got to know them all. And I could definitely see the benefits of working with a friend over somebody that's just like super rad that they're going to enlist on keyboards that wouldn't know the dynamic of the band and like when to play and not overplay. And keep in mind, they are keeping him, I mean, Poral's still in the band at this point. So he's basically just keyboardist, and then starting, I don't know if they ever like teased him with the idea of like extra guitar / keyboardist, but it seems like initially the hiring is for just Lowell style keyboardist. so he gladly takes it on though. He says, yeah, the transition was pretty seamless. I was always already around, so they hired me despite the fact I was not much of a drinker and didn't even support any specific football club. Would make his stage debut in The Cure in 1990 at the annual Bastille Day show in Paris, France, according to Never Enough. He would say that the show was an hour and a half, but it felt like 20 minutes. It was a daze of noise and light and black and white keys. However, while putting this together, there's no evidence of anything called like an official Bastille Day show, like it says in Never Enough, the book. And it definitely wasn't 1991. It was 1990. Not to call out his errors, but that was just tripped me up a little bit in my research. I was like, what? So yeah, that was wrong. But what I narrowed it down to, because by early 91, he's already playing on the MTV Unplugged thing. That's kind of what led me down the right way. What they probably meant was the Place de la République, which might just be a Bastille Day festival, another French festival in June 21st, 1990. And that would have been Perry's first show. And he just played keys on that from what I gathered. And the following gig would be Glastonbury though. So those are pretty epic shows to just step in and be like, here you go, play this. See how that feels in front of this giant fucking crowd. So yeah, like stepping back as a fan's perspective, our first sighting of Perry, or mine anyway, was technically, I guess, in 90 of the Never Enough video, and then the Close to Me video for Mixed Up, which would come out in November of 90. Of course, he probably didn't play on any of those, but he was officially in the band, so they put him in the videos. And I remember thinking, like, who's this dude? I feel like I already knew that he was in there, maybe not by those videos, but I don't think he played on Never Enough or Harold and Joe in the actual studio, because on, again, Picture Show or one of those in between, they're kind of like showing him the chords to Never Enough more, so obviously he hadn't really knocked it out in the studio with them as much. But definitely the Unplugged thing, I think, would be the first, like, as a fan, like going, yeah, that's the roadie dude. Maybe even like I read one of those, like, Rolling Stone would have those little news blurbs in the early pages there, and maybe I heard somewhere that the former roadie of the Cure was now the new keyboardist. But yeah, I think it was Unplugged was the first time I saw him play anything. So that's kind of cool. And I remember being very won over and thought he looked cool, had good hair. So yeah, I'm on board. And so by the time Wish would start to take shape, we were all eager to see what is this Perry fella, gonna bring to the table. But I think we all just love that kind of Cinderella story of like the guy that's the roadie and worked his way up and in, and that's pretty rad. Makes it seem possible for all of us. so Perry goes into the Wish sessions as an official member, and would quickly establish himself as the jokester in the band, as we talked about in some of the Wish episodes that we've done. So at Richard Branson's mansion, where they recorded Wish, they had mentioned a story where Perry would put his painting skills to the test by revising an 80s pop legends mural inside of the home. And the mural had like a young Phil Collins with glorious head of hair, and Perry would update that with a more accurate bald spot and make Phil Collins look a little more like current day in 92 Phil Collins versus this glorious, epic, full-headed hair. So they got a real kick out of that. Also, during the Wish recording sessions, Perry would entertain the bandmates by building relaunchable rockets during the off hours of recording, or maybe while Robert was doing his vocals, or who knows, in between breaks or what. But first, he said, in a kit form, then building his own rockets and increasingly larger designs. The best ones were the night launches, he'd say, where he installed lights into the nose cones that would illuminate the parachutes as the rockets descended. And he said, okay, yeah, I'm a geek, but it was really good fun. So as fate would have it, Wish, the album, would take a more guitar-focused approach, while still having plenty of keyboard parts to play. Well, maybe not plenty, but Perry would cover it, but it found himself leaning back into his more comfortable instrument of choice in the guitar. And it's hard to say how much of that was intentional or not. In 1992, obviously guitars were taking more center stage over keyboards, just in music in general, as Nirvana broke and everybody was buying a guitar. And yeah, maybe it was Robert subconsciously also just knowing Perry's stronger instrument was the guitar. But I did rewatch Show again recently too, via one of the live stream party watches with Arusha Carl and Bear with No Name. And I was almost ashamed that I'd forgotten how rad it was, The Cure having 3 guitars going at once. Like what a crazy wall of sound that was on songs like Cut and End in particular. It was like just nuts, just seeing like Perry kind of focusing on like some feedback while Robert was just laying down the riffs, and then Porl's just destroying it with the lead parts and solos. Arguably like the most full The Cure has ever sounded. So yeah, it was really cool to see that again and just being like, man, yes, this is intense. As much as I love keyboards, even when Porl came back, I was like, it needs the keyboards. But yeah, that was fucking badass. And just seeing that again, if you haven't in a while, rewatch Show and just see the difference of like what 3 guitars in The Cure it sounds like. It's pretty amazing. So anyway, post Wish, Simon was still struggling with health issues. Porl and Boris are out at this point, surprisingly, as a kid anyway, blown away by this. This is like the core of the golden era lineup. Porl, Boris, Simon on the ropes anyway. They're out. So it was like going into the long process of Wild Mood Swings, Perry was really the only Cure member other than Robert, which is nuts. Of course, Simon would, bounce back quickly. And, we went into that whole spiel. We did a whole episode on what felt like an eternity at the time, because the Cure hadn't done a 4-year gap between albums, which seems comical now, but at the time that was like a big deal. 4 years in between albums. And yeah, so Simon would bounce back, of course, because he's fucking stallion. And then the surprising move, Roger would come back for keys. So maybe Robert did pick up on the strengths of Perry and wanting to have a more full-time keyboardist cover it, and that way Perry could settle in as guitarist, but found he would also have to step it up a bit. Instead of being the third, feedback extra guitarist for Wish like he was, now he's like technically in the fucking lead guitarist position, filling in Porl's shoes. He had even had a quote. He was like, filling Porl's shoes was terrifying, as he would say. And Robert's no schlep on guitar either, but he had to really cover those tracks that Porl had laid down. While a lot of people have gripes about everything from Wish up, I feel like Perry did a great job of stepping up and filling in where the guitars needed to be, from Wild Mood Swings all the way through the self-titled album. If anything, there's an argument of, Robert's been quoted in saying that Perry's style is very similar to his own. So you wonder how much he let him record on the recordings. If Robert just recorded all the guitar parts and would, just have Perry play them live and such, or where, who knows with that. I'm sure he played some and then would tell him to play stuff. And then other ones, he would bring something to the table. You could speculate all day on that, but at the same time, I think it's just complimenting a total control for Robert on the guitars at that point after Porl's out, which has its pluses and minuses at various times. You don't have any funky pants as Porl would bring it in. You don't have any of those hot kind of songs anymore, which I'll leave that up to you to decide if that's a plus or minus. But at the same time, maybe there's something to that. But, Perry would just kind of roll with it, being the awesome diplomatic dude that he probably is. And I felt like he did a great job of just filling in that void. Like you said, it'd be impossible. Can you imagine trying to step into Porl's shoes after that and continue on? But, as far as the live recordings and the songs that were already established, Perry did a great job of those. So yeah, he would continue to roll with the band and roll with the punches. So we go into the self-titled album, and again, the diplomatic one, which is Perry Bamonte. Trying to sum up the madness of Ross Robinson, had a great quote, if you didn't catch it when we did the episode. He was very passionate. Not everyone shared his vision, arguably. He didn't understand the Cure, but he definitely believed that he did. What a great quote to sum up Ross Robinson. Everybody else was like, fuck that guy, But Perry, classy dude, man. You gotta give him that, if nothing else. But we have come to 2005, and we have one of the most confusing and messiest departures from the Cure for Perry and his brother Daryl. And it's still very mysterious and confusing to this day, even, especially because he's widely regarded as the nicest dude to ever be in the Cure. And, the Cure's kind of shown that they don't hold grudges at this point, so you wonder what is completely up. And oddly, with the internet and the million sources out there, the whole situation in 2005 seemed really just to stem from miscommunication and inaccurate details, which is unfortunate. When it all went down, 2005, fake emails were leaked, something through Chain of Flowers that I still don't really connect all the dots on. But Roger was also departed at this point from the band, and he snapped back in some kind of harsh words at Robert Smith at this point. And of course, he would later return, so they must have sorted it out. But fortunately, in this story, Perry still has not returned or shown any signs that that's a possibility, and that was it. And it was officially announced on April 18th, 2005. In a message that he had posted on his personal website. It said, "I never knew I had much impact or how important of a part of the cure I was for so many people. I wish the band well and bear no grudge." So, I mean, geez, what a great, no matter what the hell was really going on, or if that's 100% legit, that's great. It's like, just really being humble and saying, I never realized how much all these Cure fans really loved me, because he was, so loved, like we said at the top of this. And, what a huge impact on this band he was, and carrying them into this later phase of their career even. And, and it's cool that he's at least saying that he wishes the band well, bears no grudge, he's out, and that's the way it rolls. Like I said, very little actual details have surfaced on what the hell happened. And, you see this on Reddit or wherever, just people, occasional threads will pop up and I get a little new nugget here or there, but, so much speculation, and it just feels dirty every time you start digging into it, or it's like, whatever. Clearly it's something we don't fully understand. It had something to do more, I got the vibe, with his brother, Daryl, left, and Perry had to go too, kind of thing. It seems like in a weird, somewhat odd article that was posted in 2018, so way later after the fact. Perry was selling his house in Devon, and there's like this article that's out there, or somehow they get into Cure facts, but he was basically just talking about his nice house that he's trying to sell. I don't know. But somewhere in that article, he says, "I wasn't fired as reported. We're still good friends." And that his brother's departure left a strain on the relationship with Robert, where we were no longer talking. So there you go. Definitely something there that's probably way more complicated than we know or need to know, really. But definitely unfortunate, because Perry, in his 15 years just as a member and 6 additional years on top of that. So 15 fucking years as a member and 6 more years on top of that as a roadie. And he's such a beloved member of the band, It really... I don't know. Just it seems like he's being just really classy about it, but it's really unfortunate. But this is where his time in the Cure ends, and as the time marches on, it seems pretty unlikely he'll make a return. It's hard to believe that, Jesus, it's been 15 years since he hasn't been in the band. Wow, for your own just mind. Anyway, but fear not. The Cure is not all that defines this lovely man and all the awesome things that he does. Although there isn't a ton of info out there on his life since leaving the Cure. But we have been able to scrounge up a few things that I'd like to share with you guys here. As from 2005 on, we got some good stuff. Apparently he lived in Florida at some point. Not sure where that fit in the timeline. So I don't know if that, I'm assuming it wasn't while he was in the Cure, but some Florida time. Can you imagine just hanging out in Florida and coming across Perry somewhere? Weird, but I don't really have much more on that. He seems very relaxed and happy with everything that he has done since the Cure, so maybe getting out of the band is the best thing. Sometimes that is. So anyway, 2009, in more personal news, he married his longtime sweetheart, from what I gathered, Donna, and she rehabilitates racehorses. So that's pretty fucking rad. And then in 2015, he played bass on Love Amongst Ruins album, Lose Your Way. And that's one we talked about in episode 59, I think, which I'm going to re-upload after this one. It was like a other projects Cure members episode we did that has been lost in the void. And I'll bring it back for you guys. We talked a little about this, but yeah, he played in this sort of super group called Love Amongst Ruin, and it's the singer is the drummer from Placebo, the former drummer of Placebo, or maybe still the drummer. I don't really know, but yeah. So it's that guy and a dude that played in Prodigy, and another guy that played with Julian Cope. Sorry, I don't know more details, but it's easy to dig in if you really want to go down there. But a lot of people that were in other bands. And I don't believe they've released anything since this record in 2015. But yeah, it's hard to say where Perry stands with them. I think there was like some kind of update that he was playing some live shows with them between then and now. But it's a good record. It's one of those ones, the more you listen to it, it really grows on you. And then in September 2017, he held an auction that we mentioned in that last episode, but it was like a lot of 28 of his guitars. And if anybody out there scored a Perry guitar somehow, definitely let us know and let us know which one you got and how it's treating you and all that. I would love to hear it. Because most of them sold. I think there was only like one kind of classical guitar that didn't sell. So yeah, I tried to do the follow-up on that and see what the hell he actually sold and for how much. Because I remember seeing that he was auctioning a bunch of his guitars, and I was just like, these are going to go for insane amounts of money, and didn't even really try. And I wish I had, because seeing some of the stats on these, that they were kind of doable. There was an 11 Schecter guitars, because he was in the era where they started doing some personalized guitars, and he had like some specific Perry Schecters that they made for him. He had a Strat on there and a Telecaster. And I tried to just do a quick roundup of like what the highest and the lowest ones were. A couple of the highest ones was a Diamond Series Ted Bass 6 Hellcat Schecter, his version of the custom Bass 6, and it was a prototype, and it's called the Ted because it's inscribed for him on the truss rod of Teddy. His nickname Ted is on the fucking Bass 6, and that one went for about $1,152, I think. And the fucking thing is, I bought the Ultra Cure Bass 6, a few years later, and it was cheaper than this was cheaper than the one I bought. So like, oh man, that would have been rad to get like Perry's Bass 6. So yeah, bit frustrating because mine was like 1,200, I think. But yeah. Fuck, man, that sucks. But it was left-handed, so I couldn't have played it anyway. Anyway, the highest one though was his 1995 Guild Acoustic. Strangely enough, electric acoustic, and it was the one that he's used though on tons of Bloodflowers stuff in particular. And there's even a note saying it was used on the Bloodflowers tour and most notably in the Trilogy concert DVD. It went for 4,200 pounds, which is about $5,000. So yeah, that's pretty cool, and a little out of my price range there, so I don't feel bad about not getting that one. But that'd be rad to have $5,000 acoustic Perry's. The other one was a GNS hollow body electric. It's that red one. It's kind of got like a Les Paul shape to the body. Went for 950 pounds, which is about 1,244 in US dollars, and that was his touring workhorse, as it's description was, this guitar was used on countless live concerts around the world for many years, but in particular on Blood Flowers tour and the now famous Trilogy concert. If you watch Trilogy, that's the one, that red badass hollow body that he's playing. $1,000, but geez, yeah. The lowest one though was an 85 pound, which is $100. Like, it was called a Vintage Icon Series left-handed fretless bass, but it did have frets on it, so I don't know why they're calling it a fretless bass. But yeah, subtotal shitty bass. But fucking $100 to have a bass that was Perry's, I would have bought that in a minute. So shit, I should have totally kept an eye on that. So yeah, it was only $100. I mean, shipping would have been whatever, but and it had been left-handed, I probably couldn't have played it. But at the same time, whatever. That'd been rad to have a guitar owned by Perry. So if anybody out there scored one of these, I mean, geez, $100 is cheaper than most vintage Cure t-shirts or even a copy of Wish on vinyl. Ta-da! Anyway, so strange auction. If you really dig around, I'll try to put the links for the outcome of all that on the Facebook page. So if you want to dig into what could have been, and just see which guitars went for what. 2018, we caught wind of a quarterly magazine that Perry has been working on as the art director and / illustrator. The magazine focuses on things like the art of casting, tying flies, and appreciating nature through the art of fly fishing. And yeah, how rad is that? So, like, we get a news blurb from Perry, and it's all about fly fishing. And it really focuses on the why we fish more, and the culture behind it. And it's not about, like, catching the biggest fish or anything like that. It's more of the essence and taking in the nature and all the cool stuff of fly fishing. So that's pretty rad. My brothers are very passionate fishermen, fly fishermen, and my son's even like starting to get into it through them, where he goes out and wants to fly fish, and it's a big deal when he's fly fishing, and regular fishing is a big deal even, but I just go with it. But so to see a Cure member associated with it, it makes it so much funner for me even. I'm like, yes, all right, let's get into this. But anyway, so yeah, it sounds like fly fishing's been a huge part of Perry's life for a long time. There are subtle mentions of it back in the old tour programs even. I've been able to track those down online, and when they're putting their likes and dislikes and stuff, there's subtle nods to fly fishing, and there's even a video clip I saw somewhere on YouTube of when they were recording Wild Mood Swings, and Robert was talking about how every night of the week they take turns cooking, and when everyone gets excited when it's Perry's turn, because it's usually because he's catching some delicious trout or something out that morning, and that's what they're having for dinner. And apparently during the Wild Mood Swings era of recording, Roger Daltrey of The Who lived nearby the mansion they were recording at, and would let Perry come over and fly fish in his lakes. So that's pretty cool. And that's where he would be catching all these delicious fish to cook up for the band while they recorded Wild Mood Swings. There's a full page interview on fly fishing, on Fly Culture. That's the magazine and all's website, that I'll put a link to on our Facebook page too, where Perry just talks about fly fishing, like barely even mentions the Cure, maybe not at all even, but just one little segment. I'll read you from that. What is it that you love about fly fishing? And Perry answers, I always say that it's 3 pastimes in one. I absolutely love casting, the physics of it, the grace, the possibilities it offers you as you develop. And tying flies is an art in itself, and allows for even more experimentation, as mentioned above. And as a method of pursuing one's love of angling, fly fishing is just so elegant, and the game fish seems so much more vital and alluring. Fly Culture also has a podcast, actually. I've listened to a couple episodes, and it was really entertaining considering I didn't really know too much about what they're talking about, but I still had a good time listening to it. Especially if you're a fly fisherman in the UK, definitely check it out. We'll put a link to that as well. But I think there's tons of tips and just cool things to take from it if you're into fly fishing. Unfortunately, they haven't interviewed Perry yet. Maybe if we all harass them and we all on our Instagram start following fly culture, and they see this flood of Cure fandom, maybe somebody will interview him for an episode. But yeah, as of now, he's their art director in the magazine and the illustrator. So I think he's drawing them, anything that's like a fish illustration in the magazine, and kind of just the art director in general of how the magazine's look. So I'm probably going to get my brothers a subscription to that for Christmas. Why not? Help them out. And I suppose the most recent news we have on Perry would be his appearance at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame ceremony, which I and Chaz were at, of course. We weren't on the red carpet with that annoying lady, but, we're in the stadium and like the nosebleeds. But yeah, it was great just to see that footage later of him with all the other former members. And he seemed happy, not standing there like clenching his fists, casting daggers at everybody or anything. He seemed to be chatting up Boris the most, just based on the snippets that are online. Who wouldn't want to chat up Boris? But yeah, so I don't know. He definitely seemed like he had no desire to talk to that lady that was asking all the questions and making a fool of herself. But can't blame him there. She was like, hey, can I get... He just like literally was like talking to Boris with his back turned to her, and she's like, yep. But was still very civil and classy, of course, as our man is. So where do we go from there? I don't know. Like we said, he seems happy as far as we can tell. So we all wish him the best. He's definitely a much loved member of the Cure. And we all have very fond memories of him being in the Cure, whether you do have one of these super personal stories where he helped you out or was nice to you at a show, or even just some schmuck like me that always just seemed like a nice guy, and I never ever met him even. But he always struck me that way. And I don't know, I think like with baseball, they have like utility players, I think they call them. But like a guy that was always good at a bunch of stuff and was versatile, and he always struck me as like the perfect utility player for the Cure, where he could play keyboards and play the guitar parts, and like always delivered what he needed to make a song great, and that's what I love. I'm all about the songwriting and stuff. Was like, so having a guy like him, I think, is like a gold mine, because he's, just gonna do what he needs to, and he can do everything like that. And, I bet if you asked him to sing the fucking harmonies, he would have been able to do it. Maybe I'm stretching there, but at the same time, he just seemed like that dude that would always step up and do what he needed to do to make the song sound really good. And like, again, if you watch show, you'll get reminded of that. It's like, man, he really could. He might not be everybody's favorite guitarist or favorite keyboardist, but I bet he's a lot of people's favorite person that was in the Cure, and that goes a long way. So it's always a little hard to confirm, but he's often credited as bringing the songs Trust, This Is a Lie, and Anniversary into the band. Hard to tell on the later ones based on demos or what, but those are all pretty rad songs, and some of my favorites from those later albums. And Trust, I think everybody totally loves, so that's pretty rad. I would have liked to hear which ones didn't make it on the albums, if he brought other ones up there. So maybe we'll wrap up on that note, though. I think we should all raise a glass this Thursday to Perry. Maybe not the full bottle like I did tonight, and or why not? He's worthy. As we salute him and cheers him on his 60th birthday, I strongly recommend we go out and listen to anything from Wish to self-titled. That'll be our goal this week. Maybe all of them every day. Maybe not. Or just one each day. Let's make this happen. Let's throw on some Love Amongst Ruin. Let's maybe even go fly fishing. Even if you've never gone fishing in any sort. Go fucking fly fishing this week on Thursday. Let's have a drink. Let's listen to some Love Amongst Ruin, some Wish. And, if you're feeling extra frisky, maybe you can even go deface a Phil Collins painting somewhere and think of Perry. So that's all I got. If anybody else has any great Perry moments, this would be a fucking great time to chime in on Facebook and leave your Perry praise and stories there. And maybe we can do a follow-up even. I'll crank them out real quick. If there's a ton of them, that'd be great. Because I have a feeling that there's a ton of great Perry stories. Could probably just do a whole episode on that. And yeah, and let's do it. So on top of that, obviously the Facebook page, but follow Instagram too, so you know what we're up to. And that's the Holy Hour Podcast. And subscribe on the Apple bullshit and make sure you don't miss an episode there. And keep your eyes peeled because I'm dumping the old ones back in there. I know it's kind of annoying because it doesn't really follow any real pattern, but they're just my favorite ones. I'm dropping back in there. And so, scroll down to the bottom of your list occasionally and see if there's an old episode you didn't hear way back when and check it out. And most of them are pretty fucking good. I stand by them, Maybe not. And email me directly, Gavin Connor at gavinconnor@gmail.com. And, we'll see you soon. We got some good ones on the horizon. We got a revisionist episode coming up. We've been talking about that bullshit for a long time, but we're going to do a quick run through of what ways maybe we could tweak some of the albums song order wise, adding B-sides, or maybe we could tweak it to our preference. So who knows? But revisionist. Oh, there also might be a Arusha interview with some Cure Elite. So I'll just tease that and make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss out on that. So if you're even sick of all our bullshit, just stay tuned because Arusha's got some inside scoop that she might be hooking us up with. And 17secondshirts.bigcartel.com. I think there's going to be a new long sleeve Wish era shirt coming up. So it fits with the Perry theme. Don't be an idiot. Don't miss this out. Go check that out. And you'll thank yourself from the future back to the present. Thanks so much for listening. Cheers to Perry. We love you. And hope you're doing well out there, Perry. If you're somehow hearing this or somebody hears this and spreads the word to you. We miss you. Take care. And happy birthday. Talk hard.